Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, and all other members of the LGBTQ were fed up with being treated unfairly. They wanted a change, so they started the Stonewall riots, which brought a turning point in history. In the early morning hours of June 28, 1969, a riot broke out in front of the Stonewall Inn in New York City. The violent protests are now known as the Stonewall riots. The Stonewall riots sparked activism and awareness across the United States.
Trans people of color are the ones who started the Stonewall Rebellion. Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, you want to know what they faced? Paying your dues with hair, teeth, skin, and bone. That's how people got to this point here today. It didn't come easy.
Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera were two trans women who spoke out about the injustice before anyone else. They were the beginning of the riots, the women who spoke first. Marsha P. Johnson, known before as Malcolm Michaels Jr., was one of the first women to speak out about the unfair treatment and violence directed at the members of the LGBTQ. She is now known as an outspoken advocate for gay rights.
Why are you here today?
Darling, I want my gay rights now. I think it's about time the gay brothers and sisters got their rights, and especially the women.
How will this affect you and your job?
Darling, I don't have a job. I'm on welfare. I have no intention of getting a job as long as this country discriminates against homosexuals.
Marsha dedicated her life to gay rights and activism, and she will forever be known as the woman who started it all. She didn't listen to what anyone else said, and she followed her heart. We could all use her as an example of bravery and heroism in our lives today. Sylvia Rivera was a transgender woman like Marsha P., who played a huge part in the happening of the Stonewall riots.
I believe in the gay power. I believe in us getting our rights, or else I would not be out there fighting for our rights. That's all I wanted to say to your people.
Sylvia left home at the age of 10 years old, so she knew what it was like to live on the streets at a young age. That experience led her and Marsha P. to found an organization called STAR, which stands for Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, a group dedicated to helping young drag queens, gay youth, and trans women. We have to do it because we can no longer stay invisible. We should not be ashamed of who we are. We have to show the world that we are numerous. There are many of us out there.
In the 1950s and 60s, homosexuality was still considered sodomy and illegal in 49 states. The punishment varies greatly by state, ranging from heavy fines to imprisonment. In society, members of the gay community are often subject to violence, harassment, and discrimination. The Stonewall Inn was owned by the Mafia. The Mafia bribed the police to look the other way. In turn, the Mafia made money overcharging patrons for drinks. Even so, the patrons were not fully safe from homophobia and discrimination. The Mafia would extort wealthy patrons, threatening to out them to their employers and families. Despite the Mafia's bribes, the police still regularly raided the Stonewall Inn and other gay bars, charging them with solicitation of homosexual relations. Trans and other gender nonconformative people were also targeted, subjected to violence, and arrested if they weren't wearing what the police viewed as gender-appropriate clothing. They used the riots as a way to communicate their unhappiness to the world and to let them know that they wanted a change and equality. The Stonewall Inn served as a place where they could avoid harassment and violence and discrimination. The Stonewall riots were seen as the first Pride, which is why people tend to say the first Pride was a riot. This happened when the New York City Police Department raided the Stonewall Inn. Up until 1966, in New York City, It was illegal to serve alcohol to queer people because even a gathering of homosexuals was seen as disorderly. However, even after this law was overturned, it was still illegal to show any sign of homosexuality, like holding hands or kissing. If you were suspected of being trans, female officers would take you to the bathroom to check your sex. Patrons were fed up with the constant social discrimination and police harassment. Protests weren't getting their point across, so they acted and made it known that they were fed up. So they started the riots.
The mob outside was howling for blood, for revenge.
And if we catch you in vow with a homosexual, your parents are going to know about it first. And you will be caught. Don't think you won't be caught. Because this is one thing you cannot get away with. This is one thing that if you don't get caught by us, you'll be caught by yourself. And the rest of your life will be a living hell.
An officer hit a lesbian woman over the head to get them into his police car. She called people to act.
Where I saw young gay boys chained to the radiators in the 6th precinct being beaten with nightsticks. He said to me, "Look away."
Sexuality. We discovered that Americans consider homosexuality more harmful to society than adultery, abortion, or prostitution.
The crowd started throwing pennies, bottles, cobblestones, and other objects at the police. 9 police officers entered the Stonewall Inn in a raid. The patrons were fed up as the police roughly tried to arrest bartenders and customers. Many resisted. Outside the bar, people began rioting. They threw bottles and pushed through the barricades. The police officers retreated from the crowd and locked themselves inside the Stonewall Inn. Rioters responded by setting the bar on fire. Police reinforcement arrived, and the original officers managed to get out of the burning bar. Meanwhile, the angry mob had grown into thousands. Eventually, the police were able to get the crowd to disperse, but it didn't last long. The riots continued until July 1st.
After the riots achieved their goal of gay liberation and rights, the LGBTQ pride and support spread widely across the United States. Today, there are pride parades held all over the world. To remember the Stonewall riots as the beginning of the LGBTQ's fight for equality, June is now known as National Gay Pride Month. The Stonewall riots are especially relevant in our society today with the Black Lives Matter movement and other equality movements. The Stonewall riots were not only a movement for gay rights, but also against police brutality, which is very relevant today. They still have a long way to go as far as worldwide equality. In June of 2016, the Stonewall Inn and the area around it was named a national monument by President Obama. Every year they have parades and other celebrations in memory of the riots. They hold them in every state, but New York City's are especially vibrant and attract many participants. This relates so much to the communication and history theme because the LGBTQ members used the riots as a way to communicate their feelings to society and protest the unjust treatment that they were living with. They succeeded very much in communicating their feelings and that they passed their goal of gay liberation and rights. Same-sex marriage was also legalized in all 50 states in 2015, all thanks to the Stonewall riots.